Story 1. Generally, yes. Literacy and information about the world are increasing in the long term, but misinformation is spreading fast in the short term. We have lost what existed of independent and principled journalism, at least with a widespread audience. 99% of your news comes from a handful of billionaires with the same interests, who compete for entertainment attention, not education. Social media is just brain rot now, with misinformation, hate, and bots everywhere and unchecked. People are increasingly falling into rabbit holes where the algorithm tailors information to reinforce angry worldviews that make them engaged and easily manipulated. Story 2. No, but actually yes. Aggregate intelligence has been on a very gradual rise over time. Even over the last several decades, this has mostly remained true. However, with the advent of the internet, and particularly the domination of social media over the last 10 years, ignorance has been getting louder and more visible. We get to see far more ignorant people online than we would actually experience in our daily lives, so the perception that people are getting less intelligent has been on the rise over the last 20, or more realistically 10 years in particular. However, as a result of social media's influence and the spread of misinformation, and a decade or more of people being manipulated by outrage-driven media since that drives engagement, people have started to do things that have, in my opinion, caused society to begin to regress. This has started to actually cause a trend of aggregate intelligence plateauing, if not outright starting to fall. So while I'd say society is getting less intelligent, I'd say the perception that society is getting less intelligent predates it by at least a decade. Story 3. People are as ignorant as they have ever been. It's a constant. People are capable of being better informed than in previous periods. People who are not informed are getting louder than before. People who are informed are just choosing to disengage. In my day, the intelligent people outsmarted the uninformed, and we always defeated the Nazis. Story 4. It's not that society is getting dumber. It's that mass communication is now available to everyone, and you didn't used to get news bulletins from delusional individuals who should be medicated and possibly put in restraints. At the same time, the traditional news media is dying from a lack of revenue, creating a dynamic similar to the Donner Party or Lord of the Flies, where they will repeat the most asinine, unsubstantiated claims as if they were facts. The end result is an information environment in which, no matter how extreme your ideological position may be, you can find a citation to support it, even if that citation is a reprint of a random remark from someone with no actual data to support it. It's made infinitely worse because nobody wants to just print the actual facts and data. It's all packaged in an appeal to vote or donate. The end result is that we have a radicalized population of ignorant, belligerent individuals who seem to think that murdering CEOs on the street is a good idea. Story 5. Yes. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention just raised the ages for developmental milestones. It's not just the misinformation and iPads, but our society wants easy answers without extra thinking. They're making way for the kids being denied healthcare and education as the United States cuts funding for the poor. You don't need a lot of education to work at Amazon. Story 6. If you are referring to the United States, yes. Watching how your country has devolved over the last 40 years is terrifying. It's a veritable disaster, but it sure is entertaining, like watching a plane crash in slow motion. Story 7. Our country suffers from the problem of having forgotten how our modern success came about. Our economic competition was decimated in World War II. Our government fostered an educated, home-owning middle class from the end of World War II to 1980. These two facts created the most powerful, progressive, and economically successful middle class in history, mostly for white people. Then, I would argue that middle class forgot how its success greatly benefited from its historical timing and how it was fostered by the government. That middle class voted to reduce spending on education for those who came after, as it empowered corporations and religion. Then, generations that came after the baby boomers got less and less of the benefits, are less educated, and more politically disconnected. The baby boomers are still running the show, and the generations that came after don't seem to care. Story 8. Yes, people read less, handwriting is basically dying, and nobody watches or reads the actual news anymore. They are all just getting spoon-fed commentary and sketchy articles via social media algorithms, and it is creating a generation of fools. Story 9. Not necessarily dumber, but attention spans are lowering thanks to the rise of short-form content. Not to mention, idiots often being the loudest on the internet make them appear to represent a larger percentage than they actually do. Story 10. Because statistically, educated people have fewer children and wait longer to have the ones they do. The demographer Harvey Danger touched on this principle in one of his better-known works. Story 11. Yes, but not for the reasons other people have given. I believe society has probably lowered its educational standards horribly, and I am evidence of this. See, I am incredibly stupid, straight up terminally dumb, and yet educational standards are so lax that I was able to finish high school, a Bachelor of Science and a Master of Science. None of this should be possible for someone like me. The only reason it is possible is due to the dilution of the educational system. Story 12. I would say that we are very distracted by a dramatic overabundance of stimulation in media, which includes propaganda, fiction, and news, making it very hard to make intelligent decisions. On top of that, we are not really solving problems well as a society, but this may have a lot more to do with incentives and corruption. Story 13. I don't think our society is getting dumber, but I do think we are facing new and complex challenges. Information overload and the proliferation of fake news can make it difficult to make informed decisions. Story 14. Social media, including Reddit, reality television, defunding of educational programs, schools heavily influenced by vested interest groups. All the information in the world is available at the click of a button, but many people are still too lazy or spoon-fed to look for it themselves. Story 15. The Republican Party has declared war on education because they cannot win free and fair elections unless people are stupid enough to believe their propaganda. That is why they have their current Catholic and evangelical campaign against public education. Story 16. I remember when I was a kid through high school, and all the adults praised the current generation because we grew up at a time when personal computers were becoming mainstream and accessible, and then we got cell phones and smartphones. We learned the fundamentals, then learned how to use the tools. Call me old, but from what I can see, a lot of kids are dependent on the tools to think. Being a digital native is equivalent to letting the tool think for you, which is to say they don't. Are there exceptions? Yes. Many, in fact. Are kids clever enough to exploit tools and figure stuff out? Yes. But we also have kids who trick themselves into thinking and acting like they have a mental illness because it's popular on TikTok, and it gets them clout with other TikTok users. Every generation has people like this, but the difference right now is how widespread and pervasive our forms of communication that enable this are at scale and how easy they are to use. We also live in a society, presuming this is in the United States, that is constantly prodded with low hedonism that says turn off your brain and be a glutton, and much of society has all sorts of selection pressures that push people into doing dumb things, even if they mean well. We also have rich elites who think their luxury beliefs are generalizable and are totally blind to ordinary problems and suffering. Story 17. College teachers are complaining that the kids nowadays can't read books. It used to be they could assign 6 or 7 books a semester, but now they're happy if the kids can get through 2. Evidently, it's starting in high school, where they are no longer being assigned books to read, but rather given passages and asked to analyze the themes in the associated passages. If kids can no longer read books, then yes, we are getting dumber and dumber. Our latest election just proves the point. Story 18. Like 80% of people I see in public are staring at their phones all day every day, and most are consuming social media nonstop. How can this not be negatively affecting society? Story 19. Because a subset of Americans have had to hide their hate, such as racism and sexism, due to the implementation of diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, minorities fought tirelessly to receive a fraction of the same treatment. Now, this subset has a certain individual telling them it is okay to express these views openly and only consume self-confirming information, dismissing credible sources in science. Additionally, Marjorie Taylor Greene adds to this issue, negatively impacting public discourse. Story 20. Absolutely, and the blame falls on the shoulders of the Grand Old Party. For decades, the Grand Old Party has been hell-bent on dumbing down American students, and sadly, they are succeeding. Story 21. In America, we just gleefully elected a billionaire administration that has already proven all they care about is enriching themselves in hopes they will fix an economy that, for the most part, was already on the mend. The rest of the world seems hellbent on making a similar mistake. Story 22. We are turning into the society depicted in the film Idiocracy. So yes, we are getting dumber, and research has shown intelligence quotients are indeed dropping. Entropy is a challenge. Story 23. American here. I don't know that society is getting dumber, but I definitely notice less ambition, maturity, and responsibility. A lot of that is possibly due to living in a decadent society characterized by a belief in the superiority of human fantasy and aesthetic hedonism over logic and the natural world. Entertainment has become an expected constant in our day-to-day lives, and it is always available. We don't have to work to entertain ourselves, and we don't even need to work hard to think anymore with artificial intelligence offering to do it for you. Boredom is an important step in success. So much of humanity's accomplishments began with a wandering mind and quiet inactivity that built up to dedicated action. When you're constantly being entertained, you have no time to fully exist in the physical world you occupy. And yes, also skibbity toilet. Story 24. No, you have to remember 200 or even 100 years ago, it wasn't even strange to be illiterate. I will say, though, that while education is so accessible today, people are choosing to be ignorant, which I think is the saddest part. Story 25. Nah, I for one am super smart, and all my personally tailored echo chambers agree with my worldviews. I can argue those views for up to 2 minutes or 2 replies, whichever comes first. Beyond that, I cannot argue with basic logic anymore, but only because everyone else's logic is dumb. And in an emergency, I can always link them the video of our group leader where he just shouts really loud, and he's wearing a really cool balaclava, so that's an easy win for us because everyone has to give him respect and just shut up. Story 26. You do not have to learn your times tables, the computer will do it. You do not have to memorize your favorite recipe, the computer will do it. You do not have to remember your mother's face, the computer will do it. You do not have to write that paper, the computer will do it. You do not have to have friends, the computer loves you. You do not have to. Story 27. Because of cell phones and social media, it's more important to share and have an opinion than it is to write and create. At secondary school, age 12 and up, none of us could wait to ditch all of modern society and forge our own paths. Before opening our mouths, we would research to ensure that we were on the side of the argument we wanted to be. Now, it appears to be more important to share beliefs with certain people based on their fame or looks. No kiddivs. I don't think most kids keep a journal or score highly in essay writing. Everyone's handwriting is atrocious. The list goes on simply because of modern-day communication. Also, the commercialization of entertainment. Now, movies and television shows have to follow a certain set of parameters based on tried and true methods to make money. I grew up in a time when movies and television were proud of making different points of view and different story arcs from anything else out there. It's almost as if the rights of the shareholder to make money trump everything else. Story 28. Yes, cell phone and social media. People used to read books or even watch TV shows when they were bored. Now they scroll social media reading a bunch of things that really are not thought-provoking in the least except Reddit. Reddit is cool. Story 29. Facebook is making people stupid. It is a lot of people's source of news. It is alarming how many people do not do their own research. They believe everything posted. America is dumbed down. Story 30. Yes, because you can see what is happening at the elementary levels in education. The behavior is so bad that the quality of teaching suffers, and many people are graduating college basically illiterate. That will only continue to get worse. People are terrible at communicating with one another, and that will be the downfall of everything fun, interesting, and good. Story 31. The average attention span is a few seconds, and it seems that way with the younger generation. This means fewer people read, and worse, they don't comprehend what they read. A nation full of people with short attention spans who don't fully think critically and only vote selfishly with their wallet makes for a very easily gullible society. Story 32. No, we probably have the same level of intelligence that we had for the last 50 years. The only issue is that it was expensive to publish things to a wide audience 50 years ago, so only well-thought-out things were written down by smart people with specific purposes. Today, anyone 6 drinks deep can get on the internet and publish their poorly considered thoughts for everyone to read, and the dedicated foolish people can coordinate with each other. Story 33. We prize intelligence over every other aspect of human existence. We forgot to teach empathy, emotional intelligence, and listening to your own internal guidance. Story 34. I think that TikTok and social media in general do not help. I think we need to stop with all the short-form content and start getting our dopamine receptors back to normal.